Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. I would like to show you how to write your first method for ion exchange using a preset method in the method editor. Before we get started, let me show you how to find the method editor. It's down here. You select the unicorn button and you're going to go over to the subscreen that has the little M on it. Select that and here is the method editor. So I want to show you what my plan is for writing this ion exchange method. So down here somewhere on the screen, I'm going to put a little diagram of like how many CVs I want to do at each step. Hopefully I get it right because I don't have it in front of me while we're writing the method actually. But I do want to share some highlights with you. Okay, so I want to use a Capto Q column and we're going to use the 5 mil high trap variety. Then we're going to load 5 mils of sample using a sample loop. Once we've done that, we're going to collect the flow through, fraction. So if I want to, look at it later, and we're going to elute the sample after it's bound to the column using a 7.5 CV gradient. Then we're going to use two buffers. Buffer A on the inlet A is going to be low salt, and the buffer on inlet B is going to be high salt, which will elute the sample. All right, if I've forgotten anything else, I'll put it up here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go over to this button in the upper left, and it says create a new method. So we're going to select that, and this is the box that comes up. So the first thing you have to do is select a system that'll work for the method you're going to be doing. This is usually pretty straightforward. You just can't run at a flow rate like for an Avant 25. You couldn't run a method that's like runs at 30 mils a minute. So, but this is pretty easy. And then we're going to select a predefined method. So while I was practicing, it ended up I've selected anion exchange so much that it's preset to this. But you can select any of these. I think I already did a gel filtration preset method. So anyway, check that out. So we're going to hit OK. And this is what comes up. So if you're looking at this, don't worry about it. Just hit OK. This just says, phases may disappear if you start changing the text, and other helpful things, but we'll hit OK. We're not going to do anything with the text. Just look at these two tabs up here and select the phase properties. So here's what we're looking at. We've got a form here in the center, and this is, everything if there's anything we want to change, this is where we're going to do it here in the form. All right, and then over here on the left are all the phases that we're going to work our way through, and this is pretty easy to see how the method would run in each of these phases. We have equilibration, sample application, column wash. So I don't think I need to explain what each of these is right now. And then down here, the gradient, and this kind of gives you a process picture of like what we're going to be running. And the x-axis is clickable, so if you want to see what's going to be going for CVs or minutes. And the reason the numbers are really weird here is because, going back up here to the method settings, we haven't selected a column yet, so the column volume right now is 0.1 mils. So speaking of which, I want you to note that the flow rate is 1 mil a minute, and that's what it says for all of these phases right now. Same thing with the pressures, like the default value. But when we select the column, and I said we're going to do a high trap Capto Q column, so that one right there, all of these preset variables change to what's ideal for the column. So 5 mil column, 5 mil per minute flow rate, and the pressures have now changed. So great. We're going to select the column position, and we're going to do it on position 1. And that's about it that we have to do here. We're going to monitor the UV at 280. The base unit is going to be CV. I'm just checking, make sure we got everything. Yep, that's about right. We're going to be using inlet A1 and B1. Yeah, all right. So we'll move on to the next phase, which is equilibration. All right, so you see the 5 mils a minute has propagated into this phase. Great. And we're going to wash the column for 5 CVs, still using A and B. Yep, that's pretty easy. Okay, sample application. So we said we're going to use a capillary loop, still running at 5 mils a minute. And we're gonna load 5 mils. So now we could just do 5 here, but there's a hold up volume for the valve, and there's a little bit of tubing between each of the injection valve and the column valve, and we want to get all the sample onto the column in this sample application step. So instead of doing 5, I'm just going to do a little bit more. I'm going to do 6, and that's why this reads as empty loop width, not sample volume. So we'll do 6 mils. All right, still using A and B, still running at 5 mils a minute. And now I said I wanted to collect the flow through fraction. And so I want to use the fraction collector to do that. And we're just gonna use the 15 mil rack. So fixed fraction volume, 15 mil tubes, that's the rack. And we're gonna, since we have 15 mil tubes, let's just collect a 15 mil fraction. Okay, great, that's that section. Notice how the gradient changes, this stretches out, this phase stretches out a little bit more. Okay, there you go. Now we're in column wash. Okay, so we're gonna wash the column for 2 CVs, don't need to change that. Flow rate still 5 mils a minute. All right, so now let's talk about the fractionation in this step. So right here, we're loading in this step, this is the sample application. So from this little blue dot to that little blue dot, that's sample application. So the column, is 5 mils. So the all but 1 mil at this point right here when we start this, all but 1 mil of the sample, there's still 4 mils on the column when we do this. So we still want to collect that fraction while we're in the column wash phase. So we're going to use the fraction collector still. Oh, jumped around on me. Still in column wash. Okay. Fraction collector. We're going to do 15 mil tubes. And 15. Okay. Here's the thing that's weird that's going to happen is that it's going to start collecting fractions during the sample application. But then, we're going to a new phase, and it's giving us an option to fractionate here as well. It's going to reissue the instructions. So we're actually going to collect not 1 but 2 fractions, 1 for each phase, which is going to kind of sucks, but it's a limitation of the software. It's a preset method. That's fine. Okay. So now we're going to go on to the elution phase. All right. I said I wanted to do a 7.5 CV elution. I like doing 7.5 CV elutions. Like a 20 CV elution is going to end up broadening our peak by quite a bit. So that's the first thing we're going to change. I'm going to change this to CVs so we can actually see it. There we go. That's really short. Oops. Go to the accumulator phase. Yep. All right. And then we're going to do a gradient elution. And then 5 mils a minute, A and B, and we're going to collect fractions. So I am going to use, instead of 15 mil tubes, because that would be 3 CVs per fraction, so that's quite a lot. I'm going to use the 96 deep well plates for this, and we'll collect 2 mil fractions. That sounds great. So we're just going to leave this at the default here. Perfect. Okay, so for the column wash, so this is the high salt column wash. We're going to, we don't need a 5 CV wash. I just wanted to do 2. Okay. All right, there's one other thing I want to point out. So here, we're going to stop fractionating right here at this point when we start this phase. When we do that, there's going to be we're going to be at 100% B, so we're going to have a high salt going through the fraction collector. We're going to address that problem when we get to the accumulator wash phase. But for other than that, changing this to 2 CVs, I think that's all we need to change here. Okay, so let's go to the equilibration phase. 5 CVs. We wanted to wash for another 5 CVs using A and B. Yeah, we're not going to monitor anything, so that's great. We're going to do that. Okay, so the fraction collector has a little tiny like syringe inside of it. It's called the accumulator, and that allows you to, you know, as the fraction collector is changing from one fraction to another, that allows you to hold on to that volume so there's no drips. But that little syringe sometimes can salt buildup can happen in there, and it'll end up jamming, and you'll have problems with your fraction collector. So we want to wash it out. We're just going to wash it out with A1, and we're going to do 20 mils. I'll just do 10 mils. 10 mils, right? And A1 is where our low salt buffer is. Now, it's not water, so it says water here, but low salt buffer should be fine, at least for right now. We could, wash it with A3, and A3 has water, but we're just trying to keep this whole method simple. But that's what that is. Okay, so we could hit save right now. We'll do that. Don't forget to save your method. Very important, saving your method. Okay, so I have a lot of folders. We're going to just go save it to the training folder. And we're going to do preset Q. Save, but we're not done yet. Almost there. So now what we want to do is change our start protocol. And so these are just the different windows we're going to go through as we try to start the method, and I'll probably make another video about actually starting the method. So we want to make sure, the fraction collector has the right racks in it, and we can change some of the variables, like we may want to change the amount of sample we're loading. So we want to select the fraction collector, and the variable list is 2 windows we have to work through, and then obviously where we're saving everything. We'll get to all these other possible choices for the start protocol later on. Questions can be kind of fun. I'll hit OK. That's it. Thank you very much. I'm going to hit save one more time. You can see that little star right there. That means we haven't saved it yet. So we'll hit save. Okay. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you have any other ideas for tutorial videos, just let me know in the comments below.